Okay, so now we shall see here, however, forward reaction only favors if suppose temperature is lowered. We'll see the next option. Next option says increasing pressure. What happens if the pressure is increased? Again, according to Le Chatelier's principle, if the pressure is increased, then again it will try to decrease the pressure. What the system will try to, since we have increased the pressure, the system will try to decrease the pressure. How does it try to decrease the pressure? It will try to shift towards that direction where there is less number of moles. Where there is less number of moles, in the equation you can see here 2 moles, here 1 mole. So here you can see that there is less number of moles. So the equilibrium tries to shift in that direction. So again forward reaction only favors. So what does that mean? Again the second option is not among what we are looking for. We want to know in which direction, that is backward direction, the reaction can take place. The third option is addition of inert gas at constant volume. At constant volume, isn't it? So inert gas does not react with equilibrium reactants. Inert gas does not react with equilibrium reactants, but we must also see what is the condition. This is given at constant volume. When it is told that it is at constant volume, so volume remains 0, there is no change in volume taking place, so delta V is 0, but that tells you that the partial pressures here, partial pressure of NO2 and partial pressure of N2O4 are being same. They are being same. Therefore, if these are same, that means there is no change in the reaction quotient. Reaction quotient also remains as it is. Therefore, you cannot find any changes in the equilibrium shifting for this particular reaction because volume delta V is 0 and reaction quotient also does not change. Even this is not the option that we are looking for. The last option is addition of inert gas at constant pressure. Again, here we are adding inert gas but at constant pressure. Now we have to see what changes takes place. Here they have not mentioned volume is constant, but here volume can change, but partial pressures are constant here, isn't it? That means when inert gas is added at constant pressure, volume can change. There can be change in volume. Why volume can change? Because you are adding one more gas there, so volume can be changed. Now here what happens, when volume increases, let me write here, when volume increases, partial pressure changes. When volume increases, partial pressure there varies. That is why system, when there is change in partial pressure, the system tries to increase the pressure. It tries to increase the pressure. How it tries to increase the pressure? It tries to increase the pressure by shifting towards greater number of moles. It tries to decrease the pressure by shifting towards lesser number of moles. But here, since there is partial pressure changes, it tries to increase the pressure. When it tries to increase the pressure, the system shifts in that direction where there is greater number of moles. Hence, in this case, there is possibility of backward reaction being favored. So, the right option is option D. We'll move to the next question now. Hope this is clear. It's based on Le Chatelier's principle. Have a look at it. You must check out the conditions also. See the conditions and then come to a conclusion. 23rd, pKa of a weak acid. pKa of a weak acid, that is HA, which is said to be a weak acid, and pKb of a weak base, again this is again a weak base, is said to be are 3.2 and 3.4 respectively. The pH of their salt, so pH of their salt means pH of salt AB is what we have to find out. They have given you pKa and pKb values for weak acid and weak base, and they have asked what is the pH of the salt that is formed by these, and it is given in the option 7.2, 6.9, 7 and 1.0. So to find pH based on acidic and basic strength, we have some kind of formulae thing. So if it is, please have a note, weak acid and strong base, then pH value is pKw, that is half into pKw plus pKa plus log C, that is concentration. Okay, if it is a weak acid and a strong base. If it is a strong acid and a weak base, remember this way, it will be opposite. pH is half pKw minus pK here, which is here for weak base. See, remember this way. For weak acid, we write it this way. For weak base and a strong acid, we have this. So since it is weak base, pKb minus log C, opposite of this. Okay. So for weak acid and weak base, sum of these two, it becomes pH is equal to half pKw plus pKa minus pKb. So what is the formula for weak acid and weak base? It is sum of the other two. pH is equal to half pKw plus pKa minus pKb. Now here we know this is a weak acid, weak base given. So this formula suits this particular condition or the question. pH is being asked for the salt AB. You know what is pKw value. You know pKa value is given as 3.2. pKb value is given 3.4. Now we need to substitute. Therefore, pH is equal to half. pKw is 14. As Kw is 10 to the power minus 14. Kw is 10 to the power minus 14. pKw is minus log of 10 to the power minus 14. So it becomes minus of minus 14 log 10. Log 10 is 1. So 14. 14 plus pKa is 3.2 minus pKb is 3.4. Just solve this. When you solve this, the answer you get it is 6.9, which is the option B. Option B is the right one here. Let's move on to the next one. Next question. 24th one. How many liters of water must be added to 1 liter of an aqueous solution of HCl? 1 liter of an aqueous solution of HCl with a pH 1 to create an aqueous solution of pH 2. To create an aqueous solution of pH 2. So here, see, they have told 1 liter of HCl has pH 1. From that, we have to prepare one more solution of pH 2. So, we have to see how many liters of water must be added. How many liters of water must be added is the question now. So, first let us see we will take the two condition. So aqueous solution means HCl in water. This is one solution where the pH is said that it is 1. That means H plus ion concentration is 10 to the power minus 1. This is 1 molarity. That is first solution's molarity. The second solution is again HCl in water itself, aqueous solution itself, but here the condition is that pH must be 2. If pH must be 2, that means H plus ion concentration will be 10 to the power minus 2. So we know the molarity of second solution also. And we know the volume for the first solution. The volume for first solution is given as 1 liter. Volume is given as 1 liter. So based on this, let us see V2 minus V1 is how much is the question, isn't it? So we will have to find out. We do not know what is the volume here. If we know the volume here, we will subtract this and find out how much volume of solution or water is required. So V2 minus V1 is what we have to find. We'll use M1 V1 is equal to M2 V2. Since this is for the first HCl solution, this is for second HCl solution. Okay. M1 for first solution is 10 to the power minus 1. Volume is 1 is equal to M2 for the second one is 10 to the power minus 2 into volume is what we do not know. Therefore, volume is equal to 10 to the power minus 1 by 10 to the power minus 2. So how much do you get? You get it as 10 liters. So we got V2 as 10 liters. What is there in the question? How many liters of water must be added to 1 liter of aqueous solution? When the volume of second solution is 10 liters, how much you have added is what we have to know. So initially it was 1 liter. So to 1 liter, how much should you add to get 10 liters? It is 9 liters, isn't it? Otherwise, see, V2 minus V1, volume of water is equal to V2 minus V1, 10 minus 1. 9 liters. Which is the option? Option D. Option D, which says 9.0 liter is the right answer. Next question, 25th one. Among the following, total number of compounds whose aqueous solution turns red litmus paper blue. Red litmus paper blue. They have given you number of compounds. Out of that, you have to see how many compounds when you prepare an aqueous solution of it, when you dissolve in water and prepare a solution of it, it turns red litmus into blue. If it has to turn red litmus into blue, then which type of solution it must be? You know, if red litmus has to turn blue, then it must be a basic solution. If blue litmus must turn red, then it must be acidic solution. But in the question they have asked related to basic solution, and they have given you options there, out of which you have to check out which one shows basic behavior. I'll write down those: KCN, K2, SO4, NH4 twice, ammonium oxalate, sodium chloride, zinc nitrate, iron chloride, that is ferrous chloride, ferric chloride, potassium carbonate, ammonium nitrate, and lithium cyanide. Okay, from this we have to check out which one can give a basic solution when you prepare an aqueous solution. First, let us see how it can actually dissociate. Otherwise, we can just write down when you dissolve it in water, what type of solution are formed. When you dissolve KCN in water, what do you get? So you know K is positively charged, Cn is negative. So from H2O, out of H plus and OH minus, this Cn will take positive charge, K plus will take negative charge, isn't it? I need not stress on that. So KOH plus HCN. Now you see, out of these two, which one is a strong acid and which one is a weak base, or what kind of it is? KOH is a strong base, HCN is a weak acid. So if you dissolve, what kind of solution are you getting? This is aqueous solution in which you have got a strong base. So it can change red litmus into blue. This is one option. One compound we got to know. The next one we will see. K2SO4, if you dissolve in water, what do you get? You get KOH plus H2SO4 you are going to get. Here if you see, if you observe, again you get a strong base. At the same time, you are getting a strong acid, sulfuric acid, where it becomes a neutral solution. So this becomes neutral, and that is why this is not in our option. So that cannot be considered. Next one, ammonium oxalate. So here you get ammonium hydroxide when you dissolve in water plus H2O. You get ammonium hydroxide plus oxalate. You know how to write this, isn't it? COOH, COOH, oxalic acid we say. H2C2O4. H2C2O4, oxalic acid. Which type of solutions these are now? This is a weak base and a weak acid. So again, you cannot get a basic solution here. It can be either acidic or basic, or it can be almost neutral. So we are not considering it. Now sodium chloride, it's an ionic compound. When you treat with H2O, you get what? NaOH and HCl. Again, here you see, this is a strong base, strong acid. So it becomes neutral. Remember this particular salt, because though it seems ionic, it also forms a basic solution also. In most of the questions, you can find this particular option where if you know the property of it, it becomes easier to you to guess the question. Here if you treat it with water, you get zinc hydroxide and nitric acid. Zinc hydroxide is a weak base. It is a weak base, and nitric acid is a strong acid. So ultimately the solution will be acidic. FeCl3, again if you treat with water, you get ferrous hydroxide plus HCl. So strong acid and a weak base. Ultimately you get a solution acidic itself. K2CO3, here if you treat it with water, you get KOH plus H2CO3. Carbonic acid you get. Here you can see this is a strong base. Potassium hydroxide is a strong base, whereas carbonic acid is a weak acid. If it is a weak acid and a strong base, yes, it can show a strong base behavior where it can turn the red litmus into blue. So that can be the option. In the other two options we will see ammonium. Here you get ammonium hydroxide and nitric acid. Nitric acid is a strong acid. This is a weak base. So acidic nature dominates here, and hence it cannot turn the red litmus into blue. Lithium cyanide, here you get lithium hydroxide and hydrogen cyanide. Hydrogen cyanide is a weak acid. Hydrogen cyanide is a weak acid, whereas lithium hydroxide acts as a strong base. Strong base. So it is also among the option which can turn red litmus to blue, lithium hydroxide. See, comparing to the other one, sodium, potassium and all, it may have comparatively less basic nature, but as a particular one, it can show strong basic behavior, because of which that is also under the option. So how many number of compounds they have asked? How many number of compounds? So 1, 2 and 3. So option 3 is check out the option. Option A says 3, so that is the right one. Let us see the next question. It's about buffer solutions. Buffer solutions have constant acidity and alkalinity because, see, when you have such questions, though you have a brief idea of what happens actually in the case of buffer solution, yeah, you say it resists the change in pH, but how it resists the change in pH is also an important concept to know. Why? Because here in this question you will know that they have asked the reason for it. If you know the exact reason for it, only then you can answer this particular question really well. So the question is related to buffer solutions. They have asked, buffer solutions have constant acidity and alkalinity. Why? Constant acidity and alkalinity means no change in the pH. pH remains almost same. The reason is, I'll tell you the reason first and then we shall see the options. The reason is, when you have taken a buffer solution, say you have a buffer solution, how it resists the change in pH is, it actually will be having two solutes. It will have two solutes, out of which one will form a weak Bronsted acid, one will form weak Bronsted acid, that is Lowry Bronsted acid, and the other one will form weak Bronsted base. Okay, there will be two solutes present in it, which one acts as weak Bronsted acid, one more is weak Bronsted base. So these two solutes, what they do is they try to balance the substance which you are adding. It tries to resist a small amount of acid or base. If you add, then it can resist. Why? Because these two solutes which are present will try to balance it, will try to neutralize it, or will try to resist its nature or what you have added, either acid or base. Say since we are speaking about pH, the small amount of acid when you have added, it tries to balance, it tries to resist. That is the main reason. Okay, why? The reason is not that it has some special property that it will not allow anything to react. It's not that. It will come to the solution, right? Then these two solutes will look after. That is the thing. Now options are, these give unionized acid or base on reaction with added acid or alkali. Yes, that is the right option. So option A says it forms unionized acid or base, isn't it? So I have told you two solutes are present, so they will react and they will see that there is formation of unionized acid. It does not allow the acid or base to ionize. If it ionizes only, then isn't it, we get that H plus ion concentration or OH minus ion concentration which will affect. So it will not allow the acid or base to ionize. It forms unionized acid or base. That is the option. The other options are, acids and alkalis in these solutions are shielded from the attack. No, it is not shielded from the attack of ions. There is no protective layer there which prevents the attack of acid or base. The third option is, they have large excess of H plus and OH minus. No, it's again not right. They have fixed value of pH. No, it resists the change in pH, but it doesn't mean that it has a fixed pH for any buffer solution. So right option is option A. Please make a note of it. Moving on to the next question. Aqueous solution of which of the following compounds is the best conductor of electric current? They have asked which is the best conductor of electric current. Options are ammonia, fructose, acetic acid. They have given as C2H4O2, it's CH3COH, hydrochloric acid. Okay, here what you need to check out is it's a concept related to strong electrolytes and weak electrolytes. If it is a strong electrolyte, it dissociates completely. If it dissociates completely, it can easily conduct electricity. That is a basic concept. Now let us see one by one. Ammonia, fructose, acetic acid and HCl. So just by having a look, we know which is a strong acid in this case, or a strong electrolyte, that is HCl, which dissociates completely as H plus and Cl minus, whereas ammonium, though it can it dissociate, it's a strong base, so usually you have less tendency of being dissociated. Even fructose nor acetic acid is a weak acid, so that there again you cannot find complete dissociation, because of which you cannot see maximum conducting of electric current. Even in the case of fructose also you cannot see that particular chances of getting dissociated completely and hence conducting. Therefore HCl is the right option, where it can easily get dissociated, and because it can easily dissociate, it can conduct maximum amount of electric current also. Now moving on to the next question. Concentration of Ag plus ions in a saturated solution of Ag2C2O4, that is silver oxalate, is 2.2 into 10 to the power minus 4 mole per liter. The solubility product of Ag2C2O4 is. So here we have to see how it dissociates. Ag2C2O4. How it dissociates? It dissociates as Ag plus 2Ag plus C2O4 2 minus in aqueous solution. So solubility product is Ag plus square C2O4. Therefore, you know, for silver ion it is given 2.2 into 10 to the power minus 4 whole square. For oxalate ion, therefore it will be 1.1 into 10 to the power minus 4. So if you just solve this, 5.3 into 10 to the power 8, 19, 11, 12. Which is the option here? Option C. Option C is the right one. Next, 29th question. A 20-liter container at 400 Kelvin contains carbon dioxide at a pressure 0.4 atmosphere. So pressure is given 0.4 atmosphere. So 20-liter container, so volume is given 20 liter of container at 400 Kelvin. and an excess of SRO, strontium oxide. So they have told neglect the volume of solid strontium oxide. The volume of the container is now decreased by moving the movable piston fitted in the container. So volume of the container is now decreased. That means this is V1. Say V1, P1. When pressure of carbon dioxide attains its maximum value, the maximum volume of the container will be. So they have asked what is V2. When we have to calculate V2 when pressure of carbon dioxide attains maximum. So pressure of carbon dioxide, initially they have given 0.4 atmosphere. When it attains maximum, they have asked. And it is given that they have given you an equation. Strontium carbonate dissociates as strontium oxide and carbon dioxide, where Kp is 1.6 atmosphere. So that means we can take P2 as 1.6 atmosphere. Now see, you can apply a simple formula. P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2, since we know initial pressure, initial volume and final pressure also. Now we have to calculate V2. So P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. So P1 is 0.4 into 20 is equal to 1.6 into V2. Therefore V2 is equal to 0.4 into 20 by 1.6. 4 4s are 16, 4 5s are 20. So it is 5 liters. Check out the option which says 5 liter. It is option D. Option D is 5 liter. Moving to the last question. Moving to the last question, 30. For a reversible reaction, if the concentrations of the reactants are doubled, okay, the equilibrium constant will be, it is given 1/4. What happens to the initial concentration, equilibrium constant becomes 1/4, becomes half, or becomes doubled, or remains same. Say they have told for a reversible reaction. Generally, let us consider a general reaction AB forming C and D, where it is a reversible process. Now, if you write the equilibrium constant value, that means molar concentration of C into molar concentration of D by concentration of A into concentration of B, isn't it? They have asked if the concentrations of the reactants are doubled. That means A and B, if they are doubled, then what happens to this concentration term? Okay, here see, if the concentration of A and B are doubled, then what happens? The rate of forward reaction increases even more, isn't it? If A and B are increased, then the equilibrium tries to shift in the opposite direction. Opposite direction, why? Because here there will be less number of moles. If there is less number of moles, forward reaction will be favored even more. So that means what? It tries to attain the equilibrium faster. So it doesn't have any effect on the equilibrium constant anyways. Equilibrium constant is when it has attained equilibrium, yes. So if you are increasing the initial concentration of the reactants, then forward reaction is favored, where it does not affect. Equilibrium will be attained after some time. It does not it doesn't affect the equilibrium constant for that particular reaction. So you must say it remains same. Hope it is clear. So concentration of it does not have any effect on the equilibrium constant. So these were the solutions for module 5 test paper, and we'll meet with the next video, solve all the problems. And here you can see all the questions were from equilibrium portion, where it is from solubility product, or say it can be related to Le Chatelier's principle, and many other, where you can see pH, pOH concepts there, or dissociation constant problems. So all these, do concentrate well and prepare well. Thank you.